in this class, but we definitely get into logic. So logic has been around a lot longer than computers, any type of solid state device. Originally we did logic with switches and of course that evolved into relays. So we're going to look how to do logic with a PLC program or with relays. So if we do any reduction, it won't be anything you'll have to do in class, but I'll just do something so you say, ooh. So this is what we do. This is our gates right here. So these are our basic gates. And believe it or not, everything in digital are made by these guys right here. Nots, ands, ors, nands, and ors. No. We'll talk about that. So some people say that, but you'd say, well, what does negative mean? Because in binary, if we was dealing with binary, I keep writing too many bits. If I was dealing with 8 bits of binary, this right here would equal, and it was a signed number, that right there would equal to a -1. Figure that out. So what's negative? We're not going to have to create what we call a Boolean expression or a Boolean equation. So what you do, if you got a circuit and you can develop an equation for that circuit, and then you can reduce it, then every time you reduce it, then the circuit itself does what? Gets smaller. We're not going to have to do that. We're not going to convert Boolean expression to PLCs. We're not going to do that. Convert a ladder logic diagram to logic circuits. Not the Boolean expressions. We're not going to do any of the Boolean stuff. Combinational logic and sequential logic, we'll talk about that. But we have what we call 5 basic gates. And what are they? They're OR. And by the way, when you talk about logic, the whole thing's supposed to be uppercase. So that means it gives us the ability to use the word and the logic in it, right? So when you talk about logic, you're supposed to spell them in uppercase letters. These are the 5 basic logic gates. What's so neat? So you get into a microprocessor, and everything inside that microprocessor is made of these 5 basic gates. We can make adders out of them. We can make subtractors. We can do compares. We can do all kind of things with these 5 basic gates. So it's really neat. And we'll look at the Boolean expressions, and you'll get an idea of what we can do. So we have combinational logic. Does not require a clock or sequence. We have 2 types of ways we can send data. We can send it what we call synchronous. So if I was going to send information between 2 devices, like my computer to my PLC, if we come over here and we send it synchronous, and we're going to send it serial. So we got 2 ways. We can do it parallel. What is parallel? We talked about that, right? What's parallel? That means every bit has its own conductor. Usually it's 2. If we send it serial, then we got to have 1 conductor for the signal. And then, of course, we have to have another conductor for a common, right? So every electrical circuit has got to have at least 2 wires to send stuff in electrical. Everybody okay? That makes sense. Now, the problem is how's this guy over here going to know when a 1 and a 0 occurs? So one way we can do is we can come over here and we can add 2 more wires. And this is going to be a clock. And the clock is coming over here, and it's going to be at a steady state. And then, so let's draw this out. So let's say I come over here like this and do like this. Now, what am I trying to send? Well, if I come over here and verify this with a clock, and I say, okay, every time this clock makes a falling edge, that's when we read the data. So what I would say is the only thing I would look was right here, and that would be a 1. I look at this falling edge, I'd see a 0. I look at this falling edge, I'd see a 1. I look at that falling edge, I'd see a 1. I look at this falling edge, I'd see a 0. And that's the way the receiver could translate that, right? You understand? No, it's just, it reads the input on the falling edge. So we either going to time on a clock, we're either going to time on the edge that's going from a voltage down to 0, or we're going to time on the one going from a 0 to a 1. So that's the way we do synchronous data. Well, what I'm doing is taking 4 wires to send this data, right? You understand? So this would be what? This would be what we call synchronous. So synchronous means this is data that's timed with a clock. Now the other way that we can send data is what we call asynchronous. What do you think asynchronous means? This is primary. This is primarily the way we send serial data. Ethernet uses asynchronous. USB is asynchronous. So what we do is instead of sending it with a clock, we send it at a precise rate. So synchronous would be like me writing 1s and 0s on the board. 1 0 1 0 1 0 1 0. And every time I write a number, everybody's got their eyes covered up. And every time I'd go beep, and you'd open up and you'd look and you'd see what I got written up there, right? And then you do what? Then you close. And then beep, and as long we would be in sync. Synchronous would be that I'm sending them at a certain rate, precise rate, and you got an internal clock up here. And so you're in your head, you're doing the what? The beeps. So you would be opening it up, say, every second. Now I'm not sending you beeps anymore, right? You understand? But if I'm in sync and you're in sync, what I've done is I've saved my voice, right? You understand? So now instead of me adding something else, I'm sending data at a precise rate. Now we can go synchronous. I mean, I'm not synchronous, what? Asynchronous. So what they'll do is they'll send a timing. They'll send 1 0 1 0 1 0 1 0, and your receiver knows that the header, the first part of the header is a synchronizer, and your receiver gets that 1 0 1 0, and it's at that precise rate. And then the receiver does what? Then it syncs with that. And then after that, it just starts reading on its own once it gets synchronized. This is the way USB works. This is the way the internet works. So internet is asynchronous. I mean, because if it didn't, instead of sending that sucker out on 2 wires, we'd have to use all these other wires, right? You understand that? We'd have wires going all over the place. So 90% of serial data is sent asynchronous. Serial ATA is synchronous. Universal serial bus is asynchronous. Ethernet is asynchronous because they would have to instead of having 4 wires, they'd have to have 8. So it saves tons of money, and it works really, really well. It's you just sacrifice that time for the header, right? You understand that? The header. And then we have a bunch of other stuff in there too. So synchronous means with a clock. Asynchronous means what? Without a clock. Asynchronous, the information is, on synchronous, the information is timed with a clock. On asynchronous, it's sent at a precise rate, right? Does that make sense? So here they're talking about sequential logic. So they say sequential logic requires a lot. So this would be synchronous. This would be your JK flip-flops, and we're not going to have time to get into those. RS latches, D latches, JK flip-flop. Most of your counters are sequential logic. So just about anything that requires to be timed is going to have to. Boolean expression. This is pretty neat. So Boolean says, so in math I can deal with, usually in math, so, when we start dealing with algebra, y'all had algebra yet? Fun, right? What is X equal? In Boolean algebra, we've only got 2 states. We got a what? 0 or 1. Yeah, it's true or false. So every one of our formulas is true. And by the way, so if I come over here and say, where can I write it? goodness. You didn't put that option on there. Yes, they did, because I wrote on it and gave it. What's happened? My pen is not working. Maybe I can do it with my mouse. We'll see. I'll probably have to restart my machine. So another thing that we have to understand is that these two guys right here are symbols. I can't do it. I could enable my touch screen. No, I was trying to draw plus and minus. Plus and minus, these symbols, that cross and that dash is a symbol, right? Now, in math, we use it for what? Add and subtract. But we use it all over the place for different things. So we might come up here and so a Boolean equation might be something like this: A is equal to, we might say, this. Now in math, we would think that would be what? Yeah, but in Boolean algebra, this symbol represents a what? Or. And if we come over here and get this, this symbol right here is it is. So anything that we do to represent multiplication in basic algebra would be and Boolean algebra. So I could say A is equal to A, B, and that would be A and B. Or I could say A is equal to A and B, and that would be legal. Or I could say A. The only thing we never use, we don't say A is equal to A. We don't use that symbol because that's a legal number. I mean, that's a legal symbol. So I could say A is equal to X and B. So X is a term. It's not a symbol, right? You understand? In Boolean algebra, it's actually a letter. So in differential interface, the plus is the uninverted signal, and the minus is, the plus is the uninverted signal, and the minus is the inverted signal. So you got to be real careful when you see plus and minus, because it's a what? It's a symbol, and it depends on what you're talking about, what it actually what that symbol represents. Represented by the presence of a voltage or a potential. We refer to these as highs. PLCs will probably refer to it as true. And then lows, what do you think we'll probably refer to that as? So usually we say the rung is true or the rung is false. If we say the rung is true, it means that output's going to be enabled, right? You understand? If we say the rung is false, then it means that output's going to be disabled. 5 volts is a relative term. This is, we have a logic, like inside this computer right here. Inside this computer, a high is plus 5 volts, or sort of plus 5 volts. We have to give it a range, and a low would be what we call 0. So we use these terms. We use low. Low usually represents a 0, and a high would usually represent a what? A 1. We use those terms a lot. We could also use true and false, which is what I'll try to use because that's what we need to learn in PLCs, whether the output is true or whether the output is false, right? So if the output is true, if the rung is true, then the output is going to be enabled, right? You understand? If the rung is false, then the output is going to be disabled. It's going to be on. On inputs, it depends on what you're doing. DC, usually we represent 25 volts is going to equal to a 1, and 0 volts is going to equal to a 0. So this is what's coming in on our input ports. If I'm using AC, you know, if it's 26 volts AC, then 26 volts AC is going to be a 1, and 0 volts is going to be a what? A 0. So when we're talking about our input ports and our output ports, it's relative to what voltage you use. Usually digital, DC, it's usually 25 volts for 25 volts for a true and 0 volts for a false. The 0 volts is always Boolean algebra. We can develop a truth table, but we won't worry about truth tables. These are symbols, so everything we have, we'll look at the symbol, the logic symbol that we'll look at. We will learn the symbols. So this right here is a symbol for an AND. Oops, sorry. So this is a symbol for an AND. This is a symbol for an OR. This is a symbol for a NOT. Now, the problem is that this guy right here's got two names. We call the circuit an inverter, but the logic is a what? The logic is a NOT. Everybody understand that? That's the only circuit that the circuit has a different name than the logic. Huh? Well, I'll just go. I'll just do all the symbols. What I'll do right here is I'll do them out here beside them. This is a symbol for a NOT. This is a symbol for an AND. Now all we're doing is using two inputs just to do the symbol. I could have an AND like a NOT. An inverter is only going to have one input and one output. That's period. An AND could have many inputs, but it'll always have one output. But normally when we give you the basic symbol, we just show two inputs. So to get an AND, you got to have at least two. To get an OR, you got to have at least two. To get an OR, you got to have at least two. Right? You understand? To get a NOT, you're always going to have how many inputs? One. And we're always going to have one output. Are we okay? This is a NAND. So what we do on a NAND, we take the same basic symbol and we put a bubble on the output. This is a symbol for a NOR. We take the same basic symbol, we put a bubble on the output. This is a symbol for an exclusive OR. And this is a symbol for an exclusive NOR. Exclusive NOR and exclusive gates, these can only have two inputs. And we'll look and see what their what their function is. So this is a what? This is a NOT. This is a AND. This is a NAND. What did we leave off? OR. This is a OR. This is a NOR. This is an exclusive OR. And this right here is an exclusive NOR. The actual name is exclusive, but just about everybody drops it off and calls it XNORs and XORs. You can see why. Everybody okay? Okay.
So the OR is like the NOT
I kind of ghosted on this one. No, there's no symbols that are the NORs and the NANDs look sort of like their counterpart, but what we do is we put a bubble on the output. We call that a bubble, by the way, for obvious reasons. So did I answer your question, Joe? No, they don't. An OR is, this is slanted on the outside. These two guys come like this, that's an OR. A nan looks like a nan looks like ands look like D's, uppercase D's. And when I teach digital, sometimes it's funny the way people draw these gates. And then we got a set of complement gates, which we're not going to get into. We actually got 10 symbols, but we'll just look at the first 5. Are we okay? Ready to move on? Move on. If you wasn't here when I call roll, you need to make sure you get your name on roll. All right, that's y'all's responsibility. I call roll at the start of class. Also, so this is so the circuit is called a what? An inverter. The logic is called a NOT. So a true in will give us a what out? False out. How would I do that with a contact? So when you look at this, you got to look at these being controlled by something. So when this guy right here is true, this guy right here is going to be false, right? When this guy right here is false, this guy right here is going to be true. You understand? Yes or no? Huh? So a normally closed contact is a NOT. Normally closed contact is a NOT. What's a normally open contact? It's a nothing. Normally open contact by itself is does no logic. So this is a NOT. So whatever's controlling that contact, when it's true, this guy's going to be false. And when it's false, this guy right here is going to be what? True. Everybody understand? Yes or no? Yes or no? So let's say this is, I'm coming over here and I got this push button right here. And then I'm coming over here and I'm hooking this up to a relay. So this push button is controlling this. And I'm going to call this a relay and this is a relay. Well, when that push button is not pressed, this light right here is going to be on. So when this rung is true, this guy right here is what? False. So when I press that button and make this rung true, that's controlling that contact. So it's what's controlling the contact determines what's true and what's false. It's not the contact itself, right? You understand that? Yes or no? So what logic does this guy do? Normally closed contact doesn't do logic. Because when it's true in, it's true out. When it's false in, it's false out, right? It don't do any logic. So these two right here would be NOTs. That's what they're doing. The second one's even better, by the way. I see what they're doing. I see what she did now. So she did what I did. She actually put the control element up there. So this is the control element. This is CR. This is our NOT right here. This is the control element up at the top. As soon as I find my marker. So this is a separate circuit right here. And so she did exactly what I did, right? So when this contact closes, this is the control element. When it goes true, this rung right here goes what? False, right? You understand that? So I think she's doing that on all of them, come to think of it. I don't know who taught this, they got it backwards. It won't let me erase. This right here is backwards. Never, what you're solving for is, if you're in algebra, if you wrote this down, they would mark it wrong, because what you're solving for is never on the wrong, on the right. So when we write Boolean algebra, your output is over here, so it's going to be opposite of the signal. And then this would be A and B. You can't use an X there, right? You understand, because an X is, that would be the Boolean equation right here. This would be what we call a truth table. Can you see what they're saying? So what are they saying here? They're saying all. So this is true right here. So the output is true. Right. So what would we say here about this? We'd say all highs are all one equal to high. Or you could say all truths equal to true. In digital, we teach it highs and lows. And that should be plural right there. So to get an and, you got to have at least two inputs, right? You understand that? At least two. How many can you have? A lot. Especially when we start doing contacts. Now, how would we do an and? If I'm starting to put contacts in series with each other, how would we hook them up to get an and? That's an and. That's an and. Right? You understand? So both these contacts have to do what? Whatever's controlling this has to be true, and whatever's controlling this has to be true before this rung right here becomes true, right? Y'all understand? Or we say all high, in digital, instead of saying true, we say highs. So all highs equal a high. So normally open contacts in series is an and. So how many devices can I put there? I could put a lot. I don't care how many you put. They've all got to be closed before what? True. So you can keep adding them. So you could say X is equal to A and B and C and D. Y'all understand that? All that would be legal. So I could come over here and do what? I could come over here and do what? Draw some more contacts. So normally open contacts in series does what logic? And. So how would I do an OR? So OR gate has two or more inputs and one output. Any high in gives us a high out. Or what else could we say about our PLC run? Any true would give us a true, right? Any, y'all know what any means.
So the second and third could be correct.
Yeah, but look, in truth tables, what we look at is, here we're looking at what it takes to get a 1. This is true. So in truth tables, 1 is true, 0 is false. So look right here. When I got 0, 0, it don't say any low, it says any high. All right, you understand? So any high, is this any high? Okay, so what does the output do? Go high, right, or go true. Is this any true? Yeah, so we get a true. Is this any true? Yeah, people will say, no, that's all truths. No, when we're talking about any and all is unique. Any is not. So I see something unique here. What do I see? What do I see that's unique over there on that output? I only see one true. Well, this is and. So we would say this is all highs, right? When I come up here and look at this, I don't say this is all highs. Why? Because it's not a unique output. That's one of your any combinations, right? You understand? And that's what gets people, they want to say this is all highs to get high. That's not true. This is any what? Any high to get low. And of course the term should have been written like this. But I could keep doing what? Y'all understand? Now somebody said it exactly, this is OR. So if any one of these contacts is true, that or that, right? If you use the term any, it's a what? It's an OR. If we use the term all, it's a what? And, some type of and. So I could come up here, how many of these guys could I put in parallel? Yeah, many. So normally open contacts in parallel is OR. Normally open contacts in series is what? No light? No light.
Yeah, I was just thinking of the,
So if I understood Boolean algebra and I could figure out these contacts in my head, I could reduce them down, and it's going to be one you're actually reducing stuff. Now, if you take digital, you're going to learn how to do that. You're going to have to learn how to. And this really dawned on me. I had the responsibility. We got an electroscale in on one of our big line scales over at U.S. Steel, and they didn't buy an auto zero on that thing. So that means that them trucks would be coming on there, the wind would be blowing. They'd be dumping a little thing on there, and the weight on there would still keep increasing. So most of the good scales auto zero, which means that every once in a while they'll look, and if it's below a certain weight, they'll zero out. And then most scales have a motion detector on it. So when the scales start moving, when something runs on there, you'd want to cut that motion detector out. Well, I designed the circuit, and I had all this stuff. The circuit worked great. I took it to my boss, and he says, Rich, he said, this is going to work, but I think we can reduce this down. And he started doing this math, and he reduced that thing down to like 3 gates. And I had like 8 in there. I was trying to look at everything. I was trying to look at all the things, right? You understand? And I said, you know what? This is neat. And we put that circuit in there, and if you're out at U.S. Steel and over on the line scale, if they're running an electroscale over there, a blue electroscale, if you took it apart, you'd see a little circuit in there that Rich built. If they're running something else, but it wouldn't surprise me. You know, U.S. Steel don't get rid of things if it still works, do it? Now, this is the guy that kind of confuses us as far as Boolean algebra goes, and that's why we're not going to deal with Boolean algebra. About all you'll probably need to do is, I can't erase it, is look at identify the equations. So I start off with x, and then I'll come up here and put my inputs, and then we put a whole bar across the whole thing, and this means what we call a low active output. So what we would say here, we would say all highs equals a low. So ands and ors are what's required to make the rung true. Nands and nors is what's required to make the rung false. You understand that? So those other two, if I was to put them in OR, if any one of them closed and I had a light bulb out there, the light bulb would come on. If I do a NAND, if I open up any contact on a NAND, right? Then then it's going to go what? It's going to go off, right? So ands and ors are what's required to make the rung true. Nands and nors is what's required to make the rung what? False. Good guys, I've got this knocked. So this is what gets people confused, because over here we said, okay. You say, wait a minute, Rich, and somebody's going to get this wrong. You say this is right here is an and. So now what people want to do is they want to say, well, anything in series like that is going to be some type of and, but that's not false. Now notice here I'm using all normally closed contacts. And this is, now notice on ands and ors we do nothing but normally open. On nands and nors we do normally closed. What would you say about this guy?
yes.
I would say all of those would have to be what? So these are normally closed. So what would we have to do with this? How would I turn this thing here off? So right now, when I come in here and I look at this, right now, would the light be on or would the light be off?
You say that you need just that top portion of
Yeah, the top portion. We're not looking at the bottom portion. So here we come up, I turn this thing on, then this would come over here, this would come over here. So we would say the rung is true. Right? Everybody okay? What would be required to turn this off? So all these, so
They have to both be normally, I mean,
no, we're not going to change any context. We're going to say, okay, what's required to turn this thing off? So let's okay. So let's come over here. So I've got two switches up here. I might need to get another PowerPoint. I don't have it in front of me. Okay. And this is going to be CR1. I'm going to call this CR1. Then I'm going to come down here below that and put another switch. And I'm going to call this CR2. And I'm going to call this CR2. And this is what you got to visualize. So when we put these contacts, there's going to be some rung or something causing the contact. So out here, in real life, you would have two normally open push buttons on the inputs. So when I press those two normally open inputs, I would see my guy over here go to 1, right? You understand? But we're using an examine if 1. Open. So what would they do? So right now, when I come over here and made this contact right here true, then this guy right here would go false. But would the light go on? No. What would I have to do? I'd come over here and turn this, and this right here would go true, which would cause this right here to go on. False. And now the rung goes what? False. So what do we have to do? We would say, if we was using highs, we'd say all highs to get a low, or we would say all trues to get a false. So as soon as I say all, then we're going to be talking about something like this, but this is this guy right there. You're kind of looking kind of strange. You might have said, you might have, I just didn't hear you.
No, yeah. I'm cool with this. The book is pretty good.
So here we're saying what? All trues or all highs equal what? False.
It's really just a matter of committing it to memory, sort of like math and other things.
But the problem is that what do you think most people see? Well, they learn the and they see the contacts in series. But notice those are not normally closed contacts; those are normally open contacts. Right? You understand? So now what we've done is we've taken those same contacts and we've changed them to normally closed contacts, and we've got them in what? Parallel. And I could come over here and I could add another one in parallel. If I did that, then this right here, what do I have to do? Well, all of them's got to be true for the output to be what? False. That makes sense. So normally closed contacts in parallel is a NAND. Normally open is an OR. Parallel. Normally open in series is an AND. Normally closed in parallel is a NAND. So what would you think normally closed in series would be? What do I do? Yeah, so this, if this right here goes true, the output goes what? False. Right, you understand? If this right here goes true, the output goes false. I could come over here and put everything I wanted to in here, and then this right here would be a NOR. The Boolean equation for a NOR, we come up here. If I call this A, B, C, and D, then I'd say A, or B, or C, or D, and I would put a bar across the whole thing. And that's the way we indicate a low, what we call a low active output. We put a bar across the whole equation. Normally closed contacts, and what you got to remember, as soon as I see those normally closed contacts, I got one thing. If there's one contact by itself, it's a knot. Period. Right? You understand? If I see two contacts, it's going to be something else. Right? And what you do is you remember it says NORs and NANDs are what's required to turn the load off or make the rung false. ANDs and ORs are what's required to make the rung true. Right? You understand? Yes or no?
Yeah.
So if I put a bunch of contacts in normally closed contacts, the only thing I can get is to open up all those contacts to get the rung to go false, right? You understand? In parallel, that's an AND. In series, if you open up any one of these contacts, any of them, as soon as I say any, I'm talking what? ORs or NORs. If they're normally closed, it's a NOR. If they're normally open, it's OR, right? Got one more thing and then we'll cut loose. Normally closed in series is a NAND. Is a NAND. I'm sorry, normally closed in parallel is a NAND. I just did that so you look at me. No, right.
Normally open in series AND.
Yes. I'm glad you slowed down. You roll those things around in your head real easy, right? Are we okay?
Normally open in series.
So let's say that together. So normally open in series is a AND. Normally open in parallel is a OR. Normally closed in series is a NOR. Normally closed in parallel is a NAND. A normally open contact. One normally closed contact is a NOT. It's nothing. It don't do logic. True is true. True in equals true out, right? False in equals false out. It does no logic. Now we use them all the time, but it don't do logic, right? You understand? Okay, another thing that we really need to know, we really need to do is compare things. Can y'all imagine how important that is? Compare, make comparison between things. Now, normally when we make comparison, we're only going to make comparison with two things. Okay. So this is where your exclusive ORs and your exclusive NORs come into play. These are our comparators. So we can tell if two things are two, if we have two truths, or we have two falses, or we have one true and one false. This is what we do with these guys. Everybody okay? So this is the symbol of an exclusive OR. Oh. Exclusive OR ridge. So how many inputs can an OR have? An OR can have a lot. How many can an AND have? A lot. A NAND, a NOR. An exclusive gate only has 2. They're 2 different ones. Now, when we look at the symbol, this is what we get if the 2 inputs are not equal. So that means if these are not equal, then we'll get a 0 out. If they are equal, we'll get a 1. Oops, sorry. If it's not equal, this is high. So if the 2 inputs are equal, we'll get a 0 out if they're equal. If the 2 inputs are the same, we'll get a 1. No. If the 2 inputs are equal, we get a, if the 2 inputs are not equal, we're going to get a what?
A 0.
0. If the 2 inputs are the same, I'll get it out. So look, here the 2 inputs are what? Equal. What did we get? And here, when they're equal, we get a what? We get a 0, right? Everybody okay? When they're not equal, we get a what? 1. So that means I can look at the output of this gate, and if it's at a low, so if it's false, I know the 2 inputs are equal. If it's true, I know the 2 inputs are not equal. Right? Understand that? Now, how are we going to implement that with relays or with switches? Like that. So let's say I close, and I'm gonna draw lines across here, and I'm gonna circle them if they go false. So I come up and press this button right here. What's going to happen? This is going to close. What's this one going to do? This is going to open. Oh, I got to do something with the other one too. What do y'all want to do with the other one? Let's say we press this button, and we don't press the other button, right? So if I press this one, this is going to close this one, it's going to open that one. And so right now, this one is closed. I don't have this one pushed, right? So that means the first one would be a 1, and then my second one would be a 0. And what do we got out? We got a 1 out, right? See that? So let's press the other one and don't press the first one. So if I press that one, this is going to open, this one's going to close. So when we come through right here, then the rung would be true, right? So a 0, 1 would give me a what? 1. Okay, so let's don't press either one of them. So if I don't press either one of them, then this will stop right there. This will go right here. That'll stop, and the output would go false. Right? Okay. And then I come over here and I press both of them. So let's press both of them now. So here we got 0 and 0, 0 gave us a what? 0. So what we're going to do now is we're going to press both of them. So that's going to cause this to close. That's going to open. That's going to cause this to open, and that's going to close. So I come through here right now. It stops, right? I come right here. That stops. So when I put a 1, 1, I get a 0. That makes sense? So that means if the rung is false, it means the two inputs are equal. If the rung is true, it means the two inputs are different. Right? You understand?
One, two, and 0.
Yeah, that would be the rung. That would be here. So we would call this a what? False. That would be this truth table right here. So if the inputs are false, the output will be false. If both inputs are true, the output will be false, right? And that's what we're looking at on the symbol. So the symbol says if the two inputs are equal, this tells us if they're what? If they're not equal. So it says, okay, if they're not equal, this will go to a 1. If they are equal, this right here will go to a 0. Now in PLCs, we call that a true and a false, right? So this would be an exclusive NOR. So this is what we get if they're what? Not equal. So it says, okay, the output will be low if the two inputs are not equal. The truth table. If two inputs are not equal, we get a low. Two inputs are equal, we get a high. All right, well, on PLC, we'll say, okay, if either input is true, the output will be either true. Both inputs are okay. Both inputs are false, the output will be true. If both inputs are true, the output will be true. If they're not equal, the output will be false. Now, how are we going to do that with content? A lot easier than the other one. It's a lot easier than the other one, right? So right now we're not going. Let's don't press either one of them. So we'll start off with a 0, 0. So I don't have either one of them pressed. So this would come through, and the rung would be true, right? See that? So we'll close this one. So let's do this one. We'll close this one. So I'm going to come over and close one. So this right here would open, right? So that means this would come right here. We couldn't get through there. This would come here and it'd stop. So a 0, 1 would give me a 1. 0. Good, guys. So now we'll come up here and we'll do a 2. So that means I'm going to open this one. So that'll close, that'll open. So this right here will come right here and it gets blocked right there, right? This one will come and get blocked right there. So a 1, 0 would give me 1, 0. So let's come up here and do what? Let's close both of them. So I'm going to press both of them. So this will close, this will open, this will close, this will open. We can't get through this path, but it comes up here and goes through this path. So a 1, 1 gave me a 1. 1. So on an exclusive NOR, if the inputs are equal, we'll get a true, the rung will be true. If the inputs are not equal, the rung will be false. But what you need to understand is we have the ability to compare two things, right? You understand? And I can tell if the rung's true or false, whether they're what? Whether they're equal or not equal. If I want the rung to be true when they're equal, I'll wire them exclusive NOR, right? If I want it to be false when they're equal, I'll wire it exclusive OR. And guys, that's all we're going to do in this chapter. Unless y'all want to do coordinate mounts and Boolean algebra.
All right, now, I think the process is
Gotta have the test back. And if Nancy don't interrupt me, I'll probably get it up before I leave. I'll leave it 3 o'clock.
so you're gonna wait for you to give
Huh?
us?
Yeah, I need to print those off. I need to. I'm not gonna print the instructions. Everybody understand the instructions? That way I can do it front and back and I don't have to use a bunch of paper. So all I'm gonna do is print off the first part and the back part without instructions, right? I'm gonna do that
Yeah.
right now.
Bring it back.
Gotta bring it back.
It's the same test, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I need. You were the man. No, it changed. You were the man. I mean, you could be a hey. It's okay. No, but that's what we did it all. That's what I thought this week early. And I didn't answer. I was so hot. And I knew that's when you preferred. And I knew that's perfect. And when you mentioned that room, we were already operating and then we were in and all the trailing in and you were. I'm not. It was just. You have a body? It was already body. I think that was probably. Tuned it out. I definitely feel a pull for it, especially young. That I can help. It's not the age, it's the gender. Yeah. Maybe some. I don't do it. But I mean, it is true. But I mean, it's true. Okay. No, I think you yourself as a teacher. You can't go there. Get a copy. You get a thrill out of it and tell them how to do this. I get a big thrill, but I get it. And I get to show one of the ladies who wants to. Yeah. That's what happens. I definitely know that. Because even in my job, I've always managed to fit myself into a training position or create. And if I'm not in that, it's just the work. When you're not in a training, I've got to be. If I don't, I'm not operating. But, you know, my that's I'm actually or whatever their blocks are. She gave us then that was she think it's you are in
Give my phone.